everyone, and welcome back to the World Explorer podcast. This is the podcast where we take a random prompt and build an entire world out of it. My name is Casey, and as always, I'm joined with Isaac.
Hello there. So today we are continuing from our last episode where we world built essentially a prophesied destroyer of the world. And so now we're world building what it's like to live in said world. What is it like to be evading this gigantic monster, which in case you haven't seen that episode, it's essentially a giant dog-like creature made of lava, and it has a hard shell around it and fire, and it is indestructible. Essentially, you can't. There's no destroying this thing.
Yeah, and it goes around, and it starts off by doing just a fun mass destruction without any consideration. And then it slows down until it eventually realizes humanity is rebuilding itself in a more positive light, at which point it goes back into the center of the earth until humanity screws the world over again, and then it comes back out and repeats the process.
Yeah, it's one of those destroyers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we wanted to figure out what is it like to live in the world that's being destroyed, or maybe post-destruction. So I suppose the first place to start would be what it's like living in the world as it's being destroyed. Like, as soon as this thing crawls out from the center of the earth, it is causing earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes. Like, it's causing all kinds of stuff to just act up all at once.
Acidic rain wasn't acidic air like something we realized it might cause?
Yeah, I think that was mostly because it would evaporate part of the ocean.
It's not a fun time.
Yeah, that's after it's caused a bunch of storms and stuff, though, although I don't think it would take long for it to just do them in quick succession to each other. So it's gonna get into the ocean, probably lower the sea levels by several feet, and then that's gonna cause mass humidity, mass acidity levels in the air. Yeah, it's not fun. So, what is it like for the people experiencing this? I imagine people closer to the coastline, they'd be getting hit the hardest.
They're already dead. We can kind of just forget about them.
Yeah, they're dead. They're not just getting hit the hardest. They're dead.
They're
not
gone.
Surviving this. Like,
this is the classic, like, we zoom in into, like, the middle of America, and that's one of the few places there's still people living.
Yeah. Now, I'm wondering, there's going to be mass humidity and everything, but because all of this water is evaporating, the clouds become extremely heavy. Would there also be such massive downpours of rain that flooding would also be going on?
Especially because it would rain in places that normally wouldn't get rain, and therefore wouldn't be equipped to absorb that amount of water, so yeah.
Yeah, so now we've also got massive flooding. Okay, so I don't think there's really much to world build in terms of during the initial mass destruction, other than everyone running for their lives, probably towards higher ground. Well, then again, I don't know. So if we're dealing with a lot of earthquakes,
there's just a few lucky people happen to hit a sweet spot that doesn't get totally destroyed. And that's just it. It's all about luck, really, for who lives and who dies. I mean, there's going to be places that you have a higher chance of survival, but
I think the places that you would have a higher chance of survival, where after the destruction that people would go to hang out, is the area that's already destroyed. Because if you go to a forest that is completely burnt down, Magnum, which is the name of the monster that's destroying everything, Magnum would not return to that same place. He'd go out, his he wouldn't return there at least until after he's destroyed everything else.
And then at that point, when he comes back, that's when you can plead with him.
Yeah, or you just run. I think that's what's more likely is when he returns, people see him off in the distance, and they just turn tail and run. They say, okay,
Yeah,
he's
can
on his...
outrun mountains.
Yeah, they say he's on his way over here. It's time for us to pack up camp and move.
He's the size of a mountain.
Yeah.
Can you really outrun that?
Well,
you can hide.
I think the idea is to hide, like get away before he sees you. Because you're so small and he's so big that you can see him from miles and miles and miles away. And as soon as he's within your line of sight, you say, okay, time to head the opposite direction and hope he doesn't follow us. Hope he doesn't go in our direction.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to outrun him, like, if he did see you. But you can try and stay far enough away from him that he will not go in your direct direction. He won't go directly for you. Yeah, again, other than the initial destruction is just get to high ground, get away from the coastline, and that's about it. That's all you can do. You're just gonna experience all the destruction. So I guess the next part to world build is like post destruction. What it's like for people evading Magnum.
Actually, I kind of want to talk about like the plants and animals in this world, because I think they have to have some special qualities just because of the nature. Like, this is a world that gets reset every 1,000, 2,000 years or so, which is an awful lot a lot more reset than, you know, a planet normally experiences. So because of that, I think the plants would have a fire resistance to them, or be an awful lot like redwoods and stuff like that, where when fire hits, that's when new growth comes, and it comes quickly.
Probably.
So within a year, it's already regrowing itself to the point where, like, there's food for people to find and harvest.
Probably, yeah. But there's also going to be areas that Magnum just doesn't touch or barely touches. Like, there's going to be some forests that I'm sure are still left standing because no one's in the forest. Like...
Yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that the entire world's on fire, and whether or not he doesn't touch a forest, it doesn't hit the effect he causes on the entire world will still affect a forest.
Yeah, but there's still going to be like plants and stuff that could potentially grow there. But he is going to destroy, I would say, most forests because of all the fire that he's breathing everywhere. If he just gets like just a couple trees that are in the forest, suddenly the entire forest is down.
He's also the size of a mountain.
Yeah.
Most forests aren't the size of mountains.
No.
He just steps on it and the forest is gone.
Well, I don't think that his that he's going to be able to step on the forest and just destroy the entire forest. I think that most forests would be bigger than his foot.
Yeah, but that's still a big chunk, and then he set the rest of it on fire. And
yeah, that's true. His foot's on fire, so if he steps on it, that he would set it on fire.
He also has 4 of them.
Yeah, he's not. It's not like he's gonna really spare anything. Just his mere presence is gonna cause mass destruction. So these people evading Magnum, what is life like for them? Like, they're trying to run. Do they have vehicles at all? Maybe they're using bikes? Because you're not gonna really have any gasoline. They might find some gas-powered vehicles, but it's only gonna get them so far, and it's only gonna work for so long.
I mean, I guess it depends how far, like, how far humans can develop within the timeline in which Magnum is asleep. So, I guess we were kind of saying, like, 2,000 years. Well, in 2,000 years, I mean, a society can do a lot, especially if they have, like, hints or guesses of the remains of previous Magnum-destroyed worlds before it. But at the same time, they get reset technology every 2,000 years, so they're not going to progress nearly as fast as, like, our society does because we've been around for quite a while and can keep
Oh,
going.
I was thinking about it just being just our world, but set on fire essentially. Just our world with our time. Like if you want to bring in introduce other times and stuff, and make that a big integral part of it, you could absolutely do that, and technology would shift quite a bit.
So you're just saying right now we're world building a world in which Magnum just appeared one day?
That's what I was thinking. We could do either one though.
I'm not against either.
Okay. I was just under the impression that we were doing it more like Magnum appeared in our world. What happens?
I thought we were like establishing that Magnum came back every 2,000 years and was destroying this world constantly.
We did.
Yeah, okay.
But
Right.
to go and try and world build different technology levels and then see what it's like for each individual one, that's a whole, like each individual return, that's a whole lot of work and a whole lot of world building, and it could go in any direction. I'm just thinking it's sort of, yeah, like again, you can do that if that's the story you want to tell, but it's harder to world build as many elements as compared to just taking the elements from our world and saying, oh yeah, people have bikes in this world, instead of trying to debate whether or not they have bicycles or cars, or if they're mostly electric powered, or if they've developed better fuel sources and all this different stuff.
So you want to skip the world building part about this and just go straight to post destruction in our time?
Pretty much. I mean, we're not skipping the world building. We're world building like the post.
We're shortcutting a bunch of the world building and saying that it's after our time.
Yes, pretty much.
Okay. Sounds good. So there'd be vehicles. There'd be I don't think bikes would work very well. No offense to the creators of bikes.
But I mean,
maybe a mountain bike, but
like what are you gonna use?
They work better than cars.
Let's say they built a car. How are they gonna fuel it? What's the power source?
We have electric cars, but even
then, like you like the sun's blocked out. You can't get power from the sun, so
that's very true.
You can't even use solar panels, which aren't even that efficient. You could maybe use windmills. I imagine there'd be a lot of wind. So that is one area that you could get fuel. Like you could probably get fuel from like burning wood and stuff, but even then, keep in mind a lot of the forests are destroyed. But if you've managed to find one, maybe you could somehow get fuel from the heat of a fire, but even then, that's not going to be very efficient. And it's going to be difficult to power a car by burning a tree.
Well, you still got horses. You know, horses never go away.
Yeah, I mean, people could start using horses. Horse and buggy.
Again, I'm not sure how great the environment is for a buggy, but a horse can traverse pretty much anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the environment, yeah, it would, I don't know, because it'd mostly be ash and rock. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, but he's pouring lava, so it's very uneven land, and...
Yeah, because...
But it's gonna have some really nice soil afterwards, I'm just gonna say. Like, it's a good... Like, farming after Magnum is prime.
Well, it'd have to be a while after Magnum. Keep in mind, the sun is blocked out by the smoke and the clouds and stuff.
Well, eventually. You know, after the Ice Age, that is inevitably gonna occur following this event.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure about that either. I'm not sure about an Ice Age, because while the sun may be blocked out, you've got all of this heat coming from the magma that is just spewing out of the earth. Because formerly dormant volcanoes are now erupting. New volcanoes are forming.
Yeah, but eventually that heat dissipates. But the blockage of the sun takes longer to dissipate than the magma does. So that causes it to get really cold, and then you have... normally, events like this, on the grand scheme of history timelines, an event like this is usually followed by an ice age. So I'm just assuming off of my very basic knowledge of historical timelines that that would happen again, that there'd be some form of ice age afterwards. And then eventually it would all stabilize because the Earth is pretty good about stabilizing itself over time.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. It would just become an ice age after a while.
And then you get really good farmland.
But how long would the ice age last? How long does it take for the ash and the smoke to clear?
I don't know. I just know that for the sake of humans, they need food.
Hold on, I'm gonna look it up real quick. Just how long I'm just gonna look up the dinosaur asteroid and how long it took for because at that point there was talk about. I'm pretty sure at that point there was volcanoes erupting and stuff. I'm gonna see how long it takes for all that to clear. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna try something real quick. I'm gonna ask ChatGPT what happens if all the volcanoes just erupt at once. It doesn't know. It says that it could potentially have a significant impact on the atmosphere and the global climate for patterns for several years. But several could be 3. That could also be 10.
In other words, we need to figure out a way in which people and animals survive this.
So again, there's the areas that still have vegetation. There, such as like some forests. There's ways of keeping warm. There's burrowing. There's okay, how about this? If there are volcanoes that are erupting, what are the chances that some of these volcanoes are constantly erupting? Like they're just spewing out lava constantly.
What do you mean? Like they just never stop?
So I'm thinking that would be.
I mean, there are different types of lava. We have volcanoes that are just like that already. They're just in our oceans. That's how we have the Hawaiian Islands.
So I'm thinking if there's volcanoes that are spewing out enough lava, they could potentially heat an area, and that might be an area that a lot of animals tend to be drawn towards because it's it's one of the few areas that's not too cold.
I think it's most of the things with the worlds like this is we just assume somehow they survive.
Yeah, there is that. But it's always nice to give a reason and a method. So yeah. I'd say that they're surviving from keeping warm by well, animals often have their fur coats, and they can burrow, and they have the volcanoes. They have
natural selection will bring back some of the animals with warmer fur coats and stuff that were around during the original ice age.
There's a lot of creatures that survive the winter by hibernating. That's not an option here.
No, but 10 years is a little long to hibernate.
So I'd say these are the main ways that they're surviving. They're not thriving by any means, but they're surviving. Maybe there's a few areas where the climate's just naturally better and they can actually thrive a little bit.
At the end of the day, only 2 need to live.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe there's these areas where the climate's just perfect. The air currents are maybe even letting some more sunlight through. It's warmer there. Air's more breathable. Everything.
It would by chance be like the ozone hole somehow. Suddenly, this Antarctic section it becomes one of the warmer sections because sunlight gets. I mean, it's not great for your health skin wise, but at least it'll be warmer.
Yep. I mean, I'm just thinking that this could be an area where the humans all find they go and they start to say, hey, we should set up a permanent home here, and everything looks all beautiful and it's wonderful. This is where we're gonna have our happy ending. And then they see Magnum off in the distance, and he's approaching swiftly, and they're like, oh dear, we have to. They got the leader of the camp saying, all right, everybody, time to abandon this place. Magnum's going to destroy it. And then you have the protagonist going, no, we must stay and fight because our lives are finally better. And then you get the different tribes and whatever that we were talking about last week all coming together to fight off Magnum, and they work together, and then he lets them live, and they've got their little peaceful civilization, and the world begins rebuilding.
Sounds about right. And then the world slowly normalizes itself as it does. And eventually the better climate areas begin to spread, and people can spread, and the animals can spread, and then the earth becomes habitable again. And the cycle just continues. It's a never-ending cycle.
Yeah, so that's like the good like paradise location. What about the people who have not found this paradise? What about the people who are still just running away from Magnum? Do they set up semi-permanent locations? Because Magnum isn't going to be constantly everywhere all at once. The world is pretty big. There's going to be a bunch of people who are like on the other side of the world who managed to survive Magnum that are trying to rebuild. And Magnum might eventually show up over there and start re-destroying everything. But they've got maybe a full month before he does, at least. So why not start trying to rebuild a semi-permanent home?
I mean, do you think like a nomadic society would become popular again? Just tribes of people with their animals that they've managed to not die, and them traveling to little bits of green to little bit of green, trying to make sure they can feed their herd so the herd can feed them.
Yeah, that would absolutely be a thing. And I imagine they'd send out scouts so that they all know where they're going. They aren't just walking blindly where all of their herd is just going to die because they haven't had food in a while. They're going to say, okay, you run out 20 miles in this direction, then come back and let us know if we should head that way.
I see a lot of like animal skin tents. Just because they don't have access to wood, they would be using those instead.
Yeah, absolutely.
They'd just be, I guess, hunting for grass and water.
Now, something else I thought about is like you got all these nomadic societies. They've all got their animals. They've got their supplies and everything. What about raider societies? People who have formed a band of thieves, and they're just going around to these different nomad societies, probably armed because there's going to be some level of like weapons remaining. They could also make their own weapons. They probably got maybe they've got some guns, and they are just going and stealing supplies from these nomads. They're going and maybe killing some of their animals.
Anytime a world like this happens, there's always going to be a group of people who are going to survive based off of brute strength and violence. And yeah, that's going to involve mass kill. I mean, I feel like these nomadic tribes will be at least somewhat tough, and they'll have their own weapons. I mean, they kill animals to survive. So they'll have weapons to fight back, but at the same time, one group's going to be stronger than the other, and Vikings were a thing. I'm not going to be surprised that they'd be a thing in this world.
Yeah.
Of just take and burn. But nomadic societies, the thing that's interesting about them is that they move around more. So, and if they have constant scouts, they could be not only avoiding Magmas, but also avoiding these these more violent tribes, which means these violent tribes are probably a lot more swifter moving. They cover land faster, just so they can find the few nomadic tribes wandering around to kill.
Yeah, probably. That's absolutely something that would happen. Now, something else I'm thinking about is which group would be stronger in terms of their fighting capability. And I think in most cases it might be the Raiders, because here's the thing. The Raiders are probably a much smaller group. I wouldn't even be surprised if they kill their own members every once in a while.
Blood sacrifices to Magnus.
I don't think that he would accept the blood sacrifice. You try and sacrifice someone to Magnus, he's just take everyone's lives.
Yeah, but you can't tell me that a group of people wouldn't form who sees and knows of this creature that's purpose in life is just the mass destruction of the world, You don't think that a small society group of people who are fed on violence wouldn't go around murdering other people for in the name of Magnus and as sacrifices for him, because they're in their mind they're doing the same thing he's doing. They're fulfilling his purpose. They're doing his good work. Like, that's gonna happen.
Yeah, I could absolutely see a group of people that suddenly start worshiping him. Maybe there's people who like they think he is a god, and he's sent to cleanse the world of evil, and so they're there to help.
Kinda is. Yeah, except their method of helping is, and they're kind of the reason he's there.
Yeah, he's there to he's basically there to destroy everyone because everyone is destroying everyone.
Exactly. So yeah, we all have to talk. The morals behind Magnus are questionable at best.
Yeah, it's definitely.
But they're also, it's very Thanos level.
Yeah, it's basically Thanos.
Morals.
Like here's the thing, Magnum, he doesn't want people to fight. He doesn't want people to die, but he is trying to save as many lives as possible by killing people. He says that I could kill millions now and save billions down the line and make life better for billions for many years to come. So he doesn't want people to die, but he sees it as a necessity to make life better for others in the future.
Because whether we like it or not, humans tend to work better in smaller groups. We get to know each other better. We just do better. It's why like family units are so important and are a part of nearly every society. It's because in smaller groups, we tend not to kill each other. But the bigger the groups are, the bigger the nation, the more diversity, the more arguments, the more debates, the more fighting, the more wars. And then you get global sized, and then you give them powerful weapons of mass destruction, or one person who manages to take advantage of a bunch of people, and you have chaos.
Yeah, and Magnum's basically there to bring about the ultimate chaos to restore peace and order.
Go back to those small little groups.
I mean, in a way, like, it kind of makes sense. Yeah, his morals are questionable, but at the same time, you can absolutely see where he's coming from.
And he's seen it work.
Yeah, he's seen it work. Like, he knows that this method works. This method is horrific, but he understands that. He doesn't like it, but he sees it as a necessity.
The world needs to be reset every now and then, just to keep it from getting bad.
Again, it really is kind of like the Thanos snap, where after Thanos murders a ton of people, life does get better.
People unify. Whether people like it. I always like to think that like Thanos knew what he was doing. Like he knew that they were gonna bring people back somehow, and that was how. But in the process of trying to do that, and then trying to beat Thanos, the world was going to get unified in a way it's never been before, or universes even, or planets, I should say, would get closer together in ways they never thought they would. And he was right.
Yeah. I mean, really, if you look, like, he was right in the Marvel world and how they decided to write it, but how it would work in reality is his snap would just make things worse for everybody. I mean, one of the main reasons that something like, say, poverty exists and people aren't able to get the food they need isn't necessarily because of overpopulation, but it's because of poor supply chains. It's because of corrupt governments. It's because of, a bunch of other factors that are restricting people from getting the food that they need to survive. When he snaps his fingers, he has just disrupted all of those supply chains and made life worse for everyone. He has caused endless car crashes, planes, trains just crashing.
No one talks about that part.
I mean, they show it in the movie. After he snaps, there's a bunch of car crashes, and I'm just like, did he think this through at all?
Like, how many planes just lost their pilot?
Yeah, and
and just went
And
down.
how many of those planes were, again, carrying supplies that people needed to survive?
Or better yet, people. He killed way more than half of the
Yeah,
population. Like way more. Like so many car crashes. So people might have been running machinery that was like protecting other people, and then when they die, that means the other people also die. Like it's a whole thing. Like it's.
How many children are now orphans?
I don't want to think about that. The domino effect that this caused is just so horrendous, and it makes me sick to think about it, to be honest. I hated that part of the movie. I'm like, I don't think he realizes what he did.
Yeah, at least.
And he vamped himself out of there so he wouldn't have to look at it, which I think was very cowardice of him.
But yeah, that's something interesting, is that Magnum is very similar, but I'd say he's actually better. Like, he understands just how much destruction he's causing. And again, he's there to see it all. He is there to witness everything that he's doing. And he's dividing people, again, into these smaller groups that he knows will thrive. And he understands life is going to be hard for people now, but it's to make life better in the future. Thanos is just under the impression, I snap my fingers, life will instantly get better for everyone. And again, they wrote it into the movie as if that did happen. And they were like, oh, yeah, there's like less wars, there's less crime rate, people are fed, like they're talking about all this positive stuff that has happened. But at the same time, you know that wouldn't actually work that way. Magnum, the way that Magnum is destroying the world is a little bit more realistic in the sense of the domino effect, and he recognizes the domino effect. And he is...
I mean, also there's an avoidance of Magnum. Like, Thanos, it's just so random. Like, one person lives, the other person doesn't, and you don't know who. It's a flip of a coin. But with Magnum, it's an area. And if you can escape that area, you can get out, and that means that at least... I mean, there's still going to be orphans, there's still going to be families separated, but there's going to be less of that. Families are going to be able to stay together better. Friendship groups are going to be able to find each other and build societies based off of like their mutual enjoyment of each other before Magnum showed up. And that means that the societies that form are better ones. They're just stronger ones because they're ones with history, unlike a random one where everyone's just divided and lost people.
Yeah, I like the main difference between Magnum and Thanos is that Magnum is not as random as Thanos, like you were saying. He doesn't, like, when he destroys the world, he's more destructive than Thanos. He kills a lot more, but he has a better setup for rebuilding.
And, we could even remove some of the randomness even more in the sense that Magnum might just be targeting... He might not be going for, like, the smaller towns and stuff. His focus might be the bigger cities and the more mass-populated areas and the coastal lines and stuff. The places that he knows are filled with the most corruption, he targets those. Which means if you live in a small town in the middle of nowhere than which most people get along, Magnum's not going to come hunting you to destroy you.
I think eventually he'd show up, but he's less likely to.
Yeah. I guess I don't know how, like, all-knowing he is. Like, if he has a sense of the entire Earth and, like, what different sections' morals are.
Well, we already established that he doesn't, for the most part. He can understand that the more populated, more industrial areas are more likely to have the most corruption. He can understand that much, but at the same time, he believes that, like the entire world is connected. Everybody can travel anywhere. They're all corrupt. Just destroy them all. Again, at first, he doesn't care if you are living in a city and you're more likely to be corrupt. He doesn't care if you're living out in the country and you're not bothering anybody. Like, doesn't matter. You are dead. He is going to kill you. And then it's only after the mass destruction does he slow down a little bit, and he's looking for signs of people working together and learning to live together in peace. I mean, when Magnum, because think about it, Magnum is stomping around this world looking for people, and when he sees raiders going around attacking these smaller nomad groups, he's gonna think his work's not done.
But the thing is, he's also gonna kill both the nomads and the
Yeah,
raiders.
because he's gonna say among these nomads, there's probably some more corrupt people. Among the and he walks in and he says among these nomads, look, they're also fighting the raiders. I don't care like who started the fight. You're fighting nonetheless. Boom, just breathe fire, kill them.
But I do think there's pathing wise. I think walking from city to city might be a more accurate description of how he originally passed versus just roaming. I mean, he's the size of a mountain. He could see city to city to city pretty easily. So I think he would do that more so than like scouring for small towns in the beginning.
Yeah, I think he's gonna go for the big cities, but then uh, he'll probably if he sees a small town along the way, he'll go for it. If
He'll
yeah,
destroy it.
if
Yeah.
that's the closest thing within his eyesight, he'll go for it.
But if he sees like in one direction a big city and in one direction a small town, he'll go to the big city first.
And so that does so people can actually at that point detect a pattern with where all he is going. And so initially people can try and escape and spread out because they understand he's going for the cities first, which would then cause massive backups in traffic and people would be struggling to get out. And I imagine a lot more violence would actually break out during people trying to escape. And if Magnum shows up and he sees this, he's going to be extra angry. Like everything that he sees just upon his arrival is just going to affirm his belief that humanity is beyond saving, and he'll just destroy it all.
I've just had like the funny thought of, you know how there's maps that exist that if like a nuclear war happened in America that points out the towns that are like the most likely to be okay?
Yeah,
They just have that for Magnum.
pretty much. And I mean, it wouldn't be too long or too hard to calculate that sort of thing, because you just have to look at a map and say, okay, if I were Magnum, where would I go?
And then just go the opposite direction. But again, I think the going to the areas that were destroyed and trying to just survive amongst ruins might be your best bet.
Yeah, probably, because that's the place where he's less likely to go, and it's probably the place where you're going to find the least amount of people.
I would think like people following him almost, thinking that it's because that's the way to survive is actually to follow like a bit behind him.
Yeah. That's definitely, I would say, probably the best long-term strategy, but a lot of people are just not going to be willing to live out in a burnt down forest or destroyed town or anything like that. They're going to want to live in an area with clean running water. They're going to live with like where they can turn on the lights. They've got all the people around them. They're not going to want to leave. They're not going to want to leave their comfort zone until they absolutely have to, which is when Magnum shows up. But by that time, it's too late. And eventually, and they only have so long before Magnum will find them and he will destroy them.
This is such a happy place. You're gonna go vacation in the world with Magnum.
That would be horrible on every level. Again, acidity in the air, humidity, fire, lava, floods.
What if you had plot armor? You know, like you couldn't die or get...
I still don't think life would be great, even if I had plot armor.
True, I don't think I want to see the aftermath of Magnum.
Yeah, the aftermath of Magnum is like, you want some clean running water? Like, you're too bad. You gotta go scoop it up in a bucket from a dirty river filled with ash and then stick it through a cloth and charcoal filter to try and clear out all of the bad stuff in the ash and get yourself some nice clean water. That's your best bet. Maybe if there's a break in the clouds, you can build a solar still.
I mean, I think the worst part would be all the death you'd see. Like, sure, most of them are charred, but I don't know, I feel like you might get some Bombay situations. And I don't care what people say, like, looking at images of Bombay is not fun. Like, that's a place I don't want to visit.
Yeah, that is, I'd say, a pretty good representation of what a lot of Magnum's destruction would look like. It's Bombay. Because again, you've got all those volcanoes that are going off. You've got earthquakes, floods, like just there's just that mass destruction. There is basically no escape. Again, only way to really survive is to survive in the burnt areas. Maybe there will be some supplies that manages to survive in cities.
I guess it depends on like what type of destruction or. I mean, it's lava, it's fires, but I'm sure. But it's not like a nuke or something that just disintegrates everything. There's remains, and in those remains you can find things. I'm sure cockroaches will find a way to survive. They always do, and I hear that you could eat those.
Oh.
If desperate.
Huh.
Not recommended. There is a chance they will kill you, but if desperate enough.
Well, I think that there might actually, while I'm thinking about it and how Magnum would go about destroying a city, I think there is a chance that people would actually manage to survive his destruction, and those are the people who manage to stay underground. But even then, like if the ceiling starts caving in and everything, the building starts collapsing, you're not gonna survive. But there might be those lucky few who were in their basement and everything outside is...
Lucky's a strong word.
But I mean, it really is the best word, I'd say. Like there's just going to be those occasional people who maybe they're in part of a subway that wasn't caved in, that has an exit that they can get out of. Or maybe somebody is somebody who built a bunker for themselves and just hid in that, where it's built sturdy, where it's gonna survive the heat. But even then, maybe there's some people who manage to survive the heat, but then guess what? Their exit is blocked off, or maybe there was some lava that just fused the doors shut and covered it in stone, and they can't get out.
Starvation, suffocation, dehydration.
Yeah, lots and lots of problems. Like
all the ways to die.
But there will be those occasional people that Magnum did not either trap or crush or burn. Yeah, just those small areas where he didn't fully destroy them, just tiny little pockets where people survived. Unlike, say, a nuke that will literally destroy everything.
Yeah, he's not a nuke. He's a moving volcano.
Pretty much.
And there's a difference. You might very slimly you might survive the moving volcano.
Yeah. I mean, there are ways to survive a nuke if you go underground. Like, you're more likely to survive underground from a nuke than you are Magnum. But the problem is, once you go outside, there's a good chance you're not surviving the after effects of a nuke. Magnum's after effects, I think, would be a little easier to survive.
I don't know. Acid rain does not sound fun.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how acidic it would be, though. Like,
I don't know either. I'm not a scientist. This is not my strong suit at all. I have scientist friends. I could ask them and be like, theoretically, if a volcano started moving, how bad would that be?
And then they just immediately tell you, well, everybody's dead. What do you care? It's like, but assuming that not everyone died, they found ways to survive. Okay, they found ways to survive. They're gonna be dead within a week. What do you care?
Yeah, I'm sure. They would also give me really weird looks and then be like, oh no, actually she's asked weirder questions, and then just shrug and walk away.
Yeah, I mean...
That's probably what would happen.
Again, it all goes back to Magnum's bad. Magnum's deadly. Magnum, you cannot escape. The only way to survive is just run, hide, go into the burnt areas, maybe farm a little bit, and hope he doesn't show up in your nomad camp. The thing you'd be most worried about at that point is probably raiders.
It's just it's a post-apocalyptic world. It's never good. It's never fun. This one just seems extra bad because now, like, normally I feel like the environment stabilizes quicker in like post-apocalyptic worlds, but in this one you still have like an active volcano wandering the world. and it just takes longer to normalize. So more generations are dealing with the environmental effects than in a normal story.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it'd probably take at least a decade, or at least, to get some level of stabilization from, again, all these earthquakes, hurricanes, flooding, volcanoes erupting, ash in the sky.
I'm sure some scientist is like laughing at us and says, "Dude, it's gonna take so much longer than a decade."
I wouldn't be surprised if it took longer. That's why I'm saying at least. And again, so long as Magnum is up walking about, he's going to cause it to take even longer.
It can't stabilize.
I mean, I think it could stabilize at least to a point, because the main reason that the environment is so destroyed is that initial destruction. It's him destroying everything all at once. Like, because do you have any idea how destructive it's going to be if something the size of a mountain broke through from the center of the earth and crawled out to the earth's crust?
We have enough destruction when like a little bit pops out, like when our plates rub against each other. So no, I have an idea that it would be bad if something bigger than that decided to come on
Yeah, you're
out.
talking about literally worldwide earthquakes. And they're just going to be happening constantly.
But I think that's where we're going to end it.
All right. Yeah, basically, world with Magnum,
death,
not fun.
Destruction, pain, unhappiness, sadness. I hope you guys enjoyed this really depressing episode of World Explorers. Maybe next week will be a bit more positive.
I mean, I've got an idea for next week that could potentially be positive, or it could be very tragic. Hard to say, depends on where we go with it.
Actually, I think seeing what's next week, I think it's going to be a very weird one, I'm sure.
Oh, that's right. The next week is the weird one. Oh, okay. So the week after that, we really have no idea. So in 3 weeks, There's one that we could try and make more positive, but I can't guarantee anything there either. One of these days in the coming year, we'll make a more positive world.
But it's also me, so probably not.
Anyway, adios, all of the peoples of the world. We're gonna go play Minecraft.